It is a common belief that the US is the most divided it's been since the American Civil War, a conflict fought between 1861 and 1865 between the Union and 7 southern slave states who declared succession from the US, forming the Confederate States of America. It was very much a war of ideals, where the southern slave states did not want to give up slavery, and the acting president at the time, Abraham Lincoln, sought to end slavery by the end of the war. Fast forward to 2016 and the 45th presidential election, and we saw political tensions begin to flare up. Once Donald Trump became president, protests were erupting across the country, some violent, some not. But are these protests and the political unrest going to lessen? Or is Donald Trump starting another civil war? Welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions. I'm Charlotte Dobre. Over the years, there have been many divides in America that have defined the American social, cultural, or political landscape, but few run as deep as the divide that is currently affecting the American people. It is a divide so deep that Americans have almost split into 2 different countries, both with a completely different understanding of Donald Trump. So much so, Americans can no longer understand or even talk to each other about their differences. So what are the differences between the 2 groups? Looking at who voted for who, rural Americans voted for Trump, while urban Americans voted for Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump won the land vote, but Clinton won the popular vote. Therefore, for the most part, it seems to be a divide between rural Americans and city dwellers. This divide goes back as far as the beginning of Western civilization. For classical Greeks, the Aegeos was a sophisticated city-like man, and the Agrikos was associated with roughness. When portrayed in the Greek comedies of Aristophanes, city folk were shown as impractical and too clever for their own good, and rural folk displayed a more grounded sensibility. It seems we are not too different as a society as the ancient Greeks, if the same archetypes are still relevant today. Okay, so what created this divide in the first place? Many things, but a big one was the Great Recession of 2007. Occasionally, movements spring up in a society under stress, where social and political dislocation have created a sort of societal shock, leaving parts of the population vulnerable to messages and messengers who explain and justify their anxieties. It results in people giving their complete trust in a leader who in any other situation would be ignored or laughed at. We have seen it before and we will see it again, but the scary part is that it's happening right now and there's nothing we can do. Rational discussion is impossible, so if we cannot speak to one another, is the only solution to take up arms and fight? There are true believers in Trump who reject any criticism of their president. Even truth and facts do not faze their support of Donald Trump. At the same time, the other side is all too ready to shout impeachment after every minor scandal or miscommunication, and are all too ready to disregard any Trump supporter. Trump said in his victory speech, "It's time for America to bind the wounds of division," a statement that couldn't be truer, but it is easier said than done. There are activist groups that are paid and are responsible for many of the riots and protests present at Donald Trump's campaign rallies. Some of these protests became violent and dangerous. There are also many concerns that Donald Trump might be the target of a left-wing assassination attempt. Even if the attempt is unsuccessful, it could create even more violence. One thing is for certain, it's clear that people are very unhappy. But can one assume that because of this unhappiness, an internal conflict is inevitable? Is Donald Trump starting another civil war? In short, no. He's not. The divide that exists in the United States has been underlying for some time. One could argue that the divide started over 150 years ago at the time of the first Civil War. It festered in the 1960s and rose again during the Obama administration. Though Donald Trump has given voice to people who felt that their anxieties were ignored, he can't be held responsible for the problems that created those anxieties. Most importantly, it's just too early to tell. As of June 2017, when this video was filmed, Donald Trump has not been president long enough for us to know for sure what the great socio-political divide will bring. But I think most people hope that we find a bridge for the divide, and that bridge will have to be built by the American people themselves. I'm Charlotte Dobre for Life's Biggest Questions. Let us know, do you think Donald Trump is starting another civil war? What topics would you like to see next? Write your responses in those comments down below. Like this video if you found it informative, and subscribe to Life's Biggest Questions for more answers.